20 people are going to become victims of domestic abuse in the next minute. But let's think about that. Let's think about the 20 people who are doing it. That's 40 people who are experiencing violence, experiencing trauma around violence. Maybe you've been on either side of this. The truth is, everybody's a victim, but one of them is reactive and hurtful. Maybe you've had this experience and you're afraid of losing someone you love because of your own toxic reactivity. Maybe they already left you and you're dodging pain around the prospect of losing them with drugs, beer, booze, pills, whatever other vice you could think of to hide from this pain. But are you compounding your issues instead of dealing with the shadow around it? Have you thought about seeking a real way of looking at yourself to make changes because you found out you can't do it alone? Maybe you're looking at this redneck, weird beard, handsome mofo and wondering if I have something profound to offer you. Well, first I'll explain the situation that developed in my life over the last decade. I'm going to go real quick and get right to the point. So without a major prologue about how I ended up in the space that I was in and all the programming that got me there, I'll just tell you I was in a relationship with the mother of my children for about 10 years. And I was never fully invested in that relationship like I should have been. Her and I were great friends, and we had a mutual enthusiasm for cannabis, pot, whatever we wanted to do. But we got pregnant, and I threw in to be a dad, because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. But we were together, that was life, and it was okay for a while. And I just couldn't connect with her on every level, and that kind of got masked by pot use, drugs, whatever. And eventually it just felt stagnant and boring. I started looking around at shinier things, pretty women. I was about 5 years into the relationship by then. But I was seeking connections to fill a void within myself. I cheated emotionally with a score of women. Probably got physical with a few of them. I think I was with probably 5 women. And I just didn't get caught, despite, a couple close calls, whatever, messages on my phone. I lied, denied, and I got away with it. Not something I'm proud of, but that's what happened. But, I knew things were wrong, and something needed to change. I couldn't see a way out of my loveless relationship. I felt like I had to stay there for my kids' emotional stability. And something about that was off too, right? Because here are my kids watching me not being completely in love with their mother. Even if they couldn't see it, they can feel that energy. So how can I model whatever that relationship was as the relationship they were supposed to have? What would they grow into? I didn't have any of that figured out after 9 years with this woman. So I was on the fence for a couple months when I connected with someone deep in my past. This woman was my biggest crush in high school, and I found out I was hers too. We became close as friends. Well, after a long distance connection, and we became close as friends, and we developed a great understanding of each other. And we talked on the phone regularly. There was nothing awkward between us, and it was pretty liberating to express what I could with her. And it was a connection on a different level. It wasn't sexual or really flirtatious. I mean, I tried, but she wouldn't have that. So even though the sexual tension was there for both of us, she kept me honest. Even though there was some sexual tension between us, obviously, but it was fun. It was refreshing. It was wonderful. It felt great just to have her to talk to. She represented everything I felt like I was missing up until then too. So, I mean, she was funny, full of wit, capable, positive, absolutely gorgeous, stunning, natural beauty. And most of all, she understood me. She sympathized with me being on the fence and not knowing how to move forward. She heard about my kids and their milestones and listened to me ramble about my day-to-day. And she'd talk to me about her creative endeavors and the causes she supported, the modalities she followed, and the cool adventures she'd been on through in her life. So, of course, I fell in love with her. I knew she'd never be interested in a relationship while I was still undecided about my current one. So I did what any unhealed person would do. I bailed on my broken relationship, and I jumped right into the next one without full reflection or awareness. And this is where my real pain story starts. But the beginning is nice. The romantic connection was absolutely magic. I didn't need to use weed anymore to feel good about my day. I felt great. We got together. Every part of my being was completely pulled to every part of hers in all aspects. Yeah, the sex was fantastic, fun, frequent, full of light. We had a deep spiritual connection. All the moments between us being in bed together and going out, it was full of engaging conversations, playful activities, going on dates, public displays of affection, and just being weird with each other. We lived 1,000 miles apart though, and I would make a drive every few weeks or sooner just to be with her. And we made our time count together as much as we could. And this magical, fantastical whirlwind romance had us ready to marry each other and be together barely half a year later. We were ready to get married, and we were going to wait until the following summer, but we both agreed to elope early, and we made plans sooner on a whim. A week before the wedding, though, the unhealed me came out of the shadows when she asked for some disclosure about my past. She could feel some energy and had some intuition around it, and she was curious. She wanted to know. So I admitted the instances of physical infidelity and admitted only being an occasional emotional cheater when I was feeling stuck. Like that makes it any better, right? It wasn't good, but it still sounded better than the truth at the time. And this caused our first real fight. It was an emotional explosion of betrayal, anger, sadness, fear, all of that. But we worked through it, and we got married on Valentine's Day. It was awesome, intimate, and just the two of us together. At the wedding, and We had an Elvis. It was just cool. But I was selfish with the truth, and by my omission, um, because I feared that the actuality would scare her away for good. But we had our honeymoon, and we carried forward. And a few months later, she moved in with me. And then that summer, we went on a road trip to go collect her things. And she got a new intuitive download about my omission. And she confronted me with it. And the full scope of my illustrious past came as quite a shock. That entire trip was just a miserable conflict about my infidelity and unfaithfulness. I mean, there was some yelling and screaming, and I even had a tantrum. Of course I had a tantrum. And she had false presumptions about my intent, filled me with vitriol and general discontent. And that became the trigger point for all of our fights after that. And a couple months after that, it became pretty heated, and she got me with some nonsense about how easy it would be for me to cheat, because I did that to the mother of my own children, and she didn't feel that she was that important in my life. It escalated, and I lost my shit. My logic didn't work, so illogical, whatever. But I lost it, and I did things that a man shouldn't do. I did things that a person shouldn't do to the person they love. I grabbed her, I manhandled her, I maneuvered her around, and I physically manipulated her into restraint. And I had some other seriously neurotic behaviors going on. And yeah, it doesn't sound good, and this doesn't make it any better, but my intent was never harm. I was reacting out of the fear of losing her. The logic had failed, and she was the woman of my dreams, and I didn't want anyone else ever again. But to her, I was a cheater that would always be lost. At 36 years old, I went to jail with my first ever assault charge. And you know how things go. A few weeks went by. We made up. We decided to change our scene, and we moved across town into an apartment. And there was still that underlying distrust. Our issues didn't really subside. But 4 months to the day, I caught a second assault charge. Because I just didn't know how to react to the vehemence of these allegations. So I was on my way to jail before I'd even been sentenced for the first one. This obviously didn't do my custody case any good. A few months went by, and I executed my jail time and had mandatory anger management hanging over my head as a condition of release. And her and I stayed together, rocky as it was. And I mean, it was okay. I mean, we had a couple of fights, but most of them blew over. And I felt like we were almost back. And then summer came, and she just moved out of the blue. She was gone, and the shock of that, it hit me, because it had been weeks since we'd had a fight, and we were in a warm place again. And then she just went ghost. And I wasn't ready to lose a connection. So I I broke the lease and I chased her. And yeah, I'd find her and get in contact, and we'd be together for a few weeks and make up, and then it would cycle again. And it became a cycle until our last physical altercation in December of 2018. And I was there, and I hung out and I waited for her to come back for a couple of months, and then I just couldn't afford to be there anymore. I was living in hotels with my dog, working full-time as a framing carpenter, and that's decent money if you're not living in a hotel room. But Minnesota's cold in the winter, so you do what you gotta do. And I just ended up tucking my tail and moving back home. And I called her before I took off. I told her I was leaving because she'd given up. And I told her where to find me in case she hadn't. And I was burnt out from building high-rise apartments in sub-zero temperatures. I was broke from the hotels. And she didn't come back to me. And on our second anniversary, I found out, with Facebook stalking, I found out that she'd moved in with someone else and moved on. And then I lost it. I was still obsessed. I got real heavy with my online surveillance stalking. I became obsessed, and I found her. But I was scary and unhinged, and I looked up the dude. Pretty easy to find, sloppy security if you ask me, for somebody who's running with another man's wife. But I was just devastated. I was destroyed. The very thing that she kept accusing me of doing falsely came full circle. And it didn't matter what truth I revealed. She had lost all trust in me. So here I was, wallowing in the loss, and I just fell into depression. I took no interest in life beyond trying to think of ways to get her back. I lost like 50 pounds in 2 months, and that's a big deal, because I've always looked like this. I've never been severely overweight. I'm past my BMI, but you know, I'm fit. I didn't have enough fat to lose. Let's just say that. But I just lost all that weight in a couple of months because I just didn't feel like eating. Didn't have any interest. So I just kind of atrophied away. And then my dog, my best friend, the smartest, most amazing dog and animal spirit guide I've ever had the privilege to know, let alone train and cuddle and be buddies with. And he decided to go on a midnight run in a blizzard across the frozen lake outside my mom's house, out my basement door. And he'd been missing for 3 days before I found out that he'd been smacked by a train. My life just couldn't get any worse at that point. Like, beyond being homeless. But I didn't know if I even cared if I went homeless. Not like I had a reason for a home anymore. And I just wanted to check out. I wanted to punch my own ticket. But, having kids, it saved my life. They were the only reason I was willing to stay here. And I still would have accepted any other death if something else took me out, though. I mean, I was ready to go. Except for one obsessive train of thought. I kept going, how do I get her back? How do I fix what broke? How do I fix me? Or even just the part that made her leave. Because she still, I know she loves most of me. Like, I can change the other thing. Whatever it is, I can fix it. Now, these don't feel like normal thoughts, but the reaction is a natural one for anyone grieving and mourning a person for someone that's still alive. But I finally started to shift from despair after maybe half a year went by. And I still wanted only her, but, you know, and I couldn't even look at other women without noting how much they paled in comparison to with the woman that asked me to marry her. I visited a priest about all of it, and I was just asking advice and guidance anywhere I could find it. But try to ask a celibate man about any advice around a romantic connection and see where that gets you. But the shift happening from the modalities that I was studying in my obsession to get her back, anything that would bring our vibrations back to some kind of matching frequency we could meet. So I was checking out every relationship consultant, get your ex-back coach, on the internet, and learning whatever I could learn for however much I could afford, which wasn't a whole lot, but I invested a couple months into my anger management program on the reservation, and I checked out recovery groups like Celebrate Recovery. Yeah, I recommend this one if church is your thing and you're struggling with any of this around it. I highly recommend supplementing with Celebrate Recovery or some other faith-based recovery program. But I got back to a healthy weight. I started eating again. And in anger management and a few other places, I'd been studying and seeing the signs of abuse in relationships. And I realized it wasn't just me at the heart of the matter. It was my programming to react instead of responding to the instigations that she presented. I wasn't showing up the way that I truly felt about her. You know, especially when she put me on the defensive about all that other stuff. You just throw me off my ballast. And I had no balance. I had to go deep within me to understand it completely. And eventually I found out that I could forgive myself. I could forgive her. I could forgive everything. And I had to take up an attitude of deep forgiveness and gratitude for everyone around my situation, and not least of all me. I had to forgive me the most. There was no other choice. It was that or go completely insane. And I just stopped judging myself, and I forgave my estranged wife. Eventually I realized I had to stop keeping myself on hold too. I started seeing women and dating again, and it had been almost a year since I moved into that basement apartment. But I decided if she wasn't come back, then someone just as good or better has to be coming in. And if that person was only me, then that's how it's got to be. And the person that came in was the best me. And that was very freeing after being stuck in my head for so long, after all them years. You know, I've had a few relationships since then, and I've ignored some red flags since then. But I've honored my new boundaries. And these women that I was seeing, they shifted out of my space before any of the big problems ever came from under those red flags. And I learned peace to myself doesn't come from the outside. And I have all the tools I need to work through any situation, conflict, etc. I feel good about my future. I realized that on this journey, there are scores of men like me, and women too, that have the same or scarier stories about themselves, and they just don't have the tools yet to rewrite their script and change their programming. So if you can relate to my story, or it completely resonates with your situation, and you're looking for a way forward, I encourage you to reach out for me for a discussion. We can have a discovery call. My new mission is to help you heal from your trauma in the past, present, and even future situations. And if you don't want to wait until the problem takes something or something away from you, you should reach out to me. This work is next to impossible on your own. It takes forever. I've taken on guides and teaching to work through my shit and learn about my shit. And I've helped several people, and I'm ready to expand my scope and reach more people like you with my help. Now, you've made it all the way to the end of this video because you are ready to shift. Let's see if we're a good fit. And I realize not everyone has the resources to pay for one-on-one coaching, so I have some other options available. I can help you start making shifts. I care about the mental health of our collective. Hurt people, but healed people, heal people. And my ultimate goal is to have more healed people out there to expand the consciousness and community awareness. That starts with some of you struggling with attachments to codependent relationships or addiction or both, like me. So let's hook up, reach out to me and see if we gel, see if we mesh. And even if you decide not to work with me, I'll help you find resources to start the journey on your own. And I can even leave you with some keys to exceptional value within yourself. And feel free to share this video with anyone that could use help in their situation. Thank you.